good morning or good evening. Thank you for joining. Today we're going to talk about the upcoming features of the BioStar 2 system. First of all, I do understand that still it's not an easy situation. So I just hope the best for everyone. Hope everyone's safe. And today we're going to talk about the upcoming features of the BioStar 2 system. So it's going to be about some updates on the device. Feature-wise, it's going to be explained based on BioStar 2. Today's content is going to be just simple. It's going to be updates on the device and updates on BioStar 2. So most of the features, it's mostly BioStar 2 includes everything because it's the software, so it will handle some features and configurations for certain features, or it will have its own, since it's a software, it can have its own feature. But there are some specific updates on the device, so I would like to share this with you. So let's start with the devices. If you have attended or heard the last 2.8 BioStar 2 2.8 seminar webinar, I have said that we are focusing on the security part. This is same with the device. Back then, I have explained how the encryption of all data to the database works. This time, I will explain not the details of how we do it, but what we are doing on the device. So we can say we encrypt all sensitive data. So all information that is sensitive, including personal data, is encrypted with a unique key when stored on the device. The certain very essential information, such as biometric credentials, were already like PIN and biometric credentials were already encrypted when it's stored on the device. So when someone tries to take off the device, tries to penetrate through the device itself, those were still protected, but still, when we expand the concept of personal data, some of the information were not encrypted. So at this time, same as the BioStar 2, we have encrypted every data that it will be stored on the BioStar 2. Also, when encrypting these kind of information, it has to be a certain key, a unique key, or a set of keys is going to be used, but these are now very safely stored. As I said, I will not go through the details because we can go technical, but what I believe is that we keep it very simple, basic. We just give you the guarantee that these are safely stored. Even if someone takes off the device, tries to get information directly through any kind of flash memory or anything, it is close to impossible. So that's the biggest thing that we've been working on the first half of 2020. So just to give you some details on how the upgrade and migration is going to work and how downgrade is going to work. So this is kind of a tricky part, and also it could be some mistakes can happen during this process. So I will go through these very detailed and very specific. So let's say we have some devices. So when you upgrade from a low version to the new released versions, I will explain the versions at the end as a table. The device will do a migration. So it will take what was in the device and migrate them to be safely encrypted and stored on the same device. So during this process, definitely there's going to take some time. Depending on how much data you have on the device, it's going to take maximum an hour or maybe a couple hours, but this is a very rare case. So for example, if you just have a normal W2 BioLite N2. It's not a big size of data because it's only biometric credentials, fingerprint credentials, and some text, some strings for names, or even the W2. It doesn't even store any kind of strings. So even if the device is full with 500,000 users or 100,000 users, it's not going to take that long for the migration. So it's going to just take 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the usage of the memory. But certain devices, such as the BioStation A2 and especially the FaceStation 2, it stores a big size templates, the face templates, but it also stores the image logs. If I go through it again, we have mentioned that the image logs can also be considered as personal data. And what we think of sensitive data is a data or combination of data considered as personal information and information that can be a security threat when it's leaked. So image log plus a certain user ID or name, it could be combined and developed as being a personal information, very sensitive data. So we encrypt all kinds of data that could be combined. So if you're using a FaceStation 2, if you have full logs, which I believe it's about 3 million, and if you have full users, and if you have full image logs as a file, which is about 50,000, I believe, then it will take some time. So definitely we recommend do the upgrade to the latest. Some firmwares are not released yet, but once we finish the lineup, which will be around early July, then we will keep on sending till then. That we recommend upgrading the firmware should be done if you're doing an upgrade from a low version to the new version. You'll have to do it during a certain maintenance time where people are not passing. Definitely the best practice will be to create a certain simulative environment that your customer or user or site has, and then you kind of try it out, see how long it takes, and then you get the maintenance time. So this is about upgrade. Bottom line is, once you upgrade to a version that we will explain later, it will do a migration on user information. Not only user, but it will be definitely on the logs, because the logs also hold some sort of user information. And when that's being done, it will take a certain amount of time based on how many users are inside, how many logs are stored. We will try to come up with a sample of time, but it differs even based on the hardware version. So we will try to come up with approximate time based on a full log. So you'll take, you can expect when this will be done when you actually plan it. Okay, so this was the upgrade part. The downgrade part, it's a bit different. So when you downgrade, we do not migrate back to the original. The structure-wise, it does not allow that. So what happens is we delete and reset the device. So once you have upgraded or receive a device that is on a version using the encryption of personal information, and then you downgrade it to a certain lower version of firmware while having user information and logs, all of the logs, user, and every information will be deleted, and the device will be reset. This is caused because of going through a process to make the device work on the lower level system. So you will have to be aware if there is any kind of need that you need to downgrade it, then the user information should be stored somewhere. If the device supports, mostly the safest way is to get it back up before you upgrade it. If the device has like something like a USB hard, like the BioStation 2 or A2 or FaceStation 2, or if you're using BioStar 2 or any kind of other applications that were made of the SDK, please make sure the original user information is stored on the server side. and then you can do the upgrade or downgrade. And even though the downgrade will delete all the information, then you can restore back where you have started. But we believe that will not be that much kind of cases of upgrading and then going back, because we have all these new features coming up with the new device firmware. Also, once it's upgraded, unless there's a major critical bug, normally we don't do downgrades. But just in case, if you have any cases that you will have to downgrade, then please make sure you understand that the device will be deleted and reset. Now, this is a table that will show which versions of device will support the new encryption. I just marked them as the version that will have the migration. So if you have, for example, a core station with version 1.3 firmware, if you upgrade it to version 1.4, a migration process will happen and every personal data will be encrypted. Same for the Face Station 2 if you have version 1.3 and then upgrade to 1.4, which is not available yet, but you will get it soon. The process will happen. Now, once you have upgraded to these versions or higher in the future, and if you go for a downgrade lower than these versions, then there will be a migration happening. So that means all the information inside the device will be deleted. So we'll try to come up with articles and other ways to spread this out. So not many customers will make any kind of mistake that will delete your data there. Now, once you upgrade the firmware, if you're familiar with the Suprema devices, they will do a reset. After loading the firmware, the device itself will turn off and on again and then start the upgrade process. While doing that, normally we have, if it's an LCD device, it will have a certain screen that the firmware is getting upgraded. Or if you have a non-LCD device, it's mostly just blinking and staying in red for a while. Then it powers up again after the upgrade is done. But as I mentioned earlier, we have a migration process here. So we had to make a separate status that will show the migration is ongoing. So the indicator, the non-LCD products will blink in magenta on and off with a delay of 250 milliseconds. So this means if you upgrade your device and you see this LED light blinking in magenta, that means the device is in the upgrade process. If you have an LCD product, it will show a screen, a simple black background with white letters saying that the migration is on process. Please do not turn the device. And if you see on the third line, I put all caps on this. Do not turn off the device while migration. Yes. This is essential because if you turn on the device, even with the normal upgrade without the migration, there's still chances that the device will not work properly. We did put in some sort of a failback system. When it fails, it marks it and then tries it again. But it is 100% safe to not turn off the device while migration. So only cases when it loses power by accident, that can happen, but mostly definitely it's safe to put on the to keep power on the device during the migration. Okay, so this is a part of the biggest changes of the device. So we really try not to put in these kind of migration processes in the very early stage of BioStation 2. We had some issues during the migration, so this time we have put in a lot of ideas and items that will prevent these kind of issues. And the problem is not about the devices, because I believe they'll be safe, but the problem is always that it takes time, and certain times if you're not familiar with the devices and if it doesn't have an LCD screen, you might not know what's going on with the device, and if you think it's taking too long, maybe sometimes people reset reboot the device, and that will cause a problem. So as I mentioned earlier, we would try to come up ways to spread this information out efficiently. So feature-wise, I didn't talk yet about the devices, but I'll explain them merged with the BioStar 2. Okay. Before we move to the BioStar 2, Dante has made a question of this new firmware device is applied for SDK2. Yes. Well, the communication of device to the SDK, it hasn't changed. The protocol has not changed. It's just definitely based on the device. So if you upgrade the firmware, it doesn't matter if it's BioStar 2 or the SDK, it will do the process, go through the process that I've mentioned earlier. So if you go through BioStar 2, the upcoming features, first I would like to go with the review of what we have done for the couple months back. We have six types of items that we focus. It's security, feature, usability, performance, scalability, and stability. It definitely, I think every software company will be targeting to make these better. I'm just bringing this up because it will show you the new features or the already implied features and show them which category they fall into. Okay, so for a review, this is what we've done for the past 3 releases. The version 2.7.14. The XPath D2, the revision version, it's not released into the market yet, but we already implemented. So once you receive it, you can just use a version higher than that and then use the XPath D2 revision. For 2.8.0, we did a huge structure-wise change to encrypt the sensitive information, sensitive data. So we allocated a separate webinar to explain this. You can look it up if you're trying to, if you need any information for that. So also we did to register devices directly from BioStar 2 when you're using mobile, the Suprema mobile access. Before this, it was you had to use your smartphone in the app, but it took so long. If you had like 100 devices, it would take a lot of time. So we made a interface directly into BioStar 2. For users that uses MS SQL, we support Windows authentication for installation. Before that, it was just server authentication. Sometimes you do not create this when you have like a local server. So we support that, and we also support the MS SQL 2017 from 7.14 version, and 2019 starting from version 2.8.1. Now, I would like to share a short term plans for BioStar 2. We release quite often, about every 2 weeks. I know it could be a very painful job, but you do not have to upgrade it every time it comes out. You can just wait for maybe another month and see how the issues are going or what new features are getting included, and then you can try to upgrade them. So the 2.8.2, it's going to be released shortly. I'll explain some key features later. So from 2.8.2 to 2.8.7, this is our plan. There could be some delays. So I would like to ask it for you to, sometimes we find some critical bugs that makes it hard for us to release it, and we postpone the whole release date, but it's not going to be that long because if you can see, since it's 2 weeks, the portion of features are not that large, so it will be much quicker for us to fix it and then release it. So these are the 6 categories that I've mentioned. These are the plans. So if you go through security first, as I said, we do the new encryption for the BioStar 2 with sensitive data, but we also have the need to increase the security of enhancement of the key management. So that we're trying to apply it on the 2.8.7. I have some features there have underlined. These are mostly focused on because of the COVID-19. So it's all phase related. So this is kind of the phase one of us supporting features for COVID-19. So there's going to be phase server matching supported, support phase station F2, which is the new coming out device, and mobile enrollment. Phase station 2 with thermal camera. Definitely this is going to be phase station F2 with thermal camera after a few versions later. We're going to support phase station 2 and phase light as slave devices for the core station. There's going to be the enhanced APB using door sensors. So this means if you're familiar with the APB concept of Suprema, if you set an APB zone and if you authenticate, that means you're in. Sometimes you authenticate, but you do not enter, and this sometimes causes problems. So what's going to be done is once you hit the when you authenticate, the status will not be updated unless you open the door or the door was already open. So this is not a perfect solution because it's not using any kind of visualized sensors, but it will reduce the error rate of the actual making the correct status. For the next version, we're going to support, maybe I should use this pointer, the elevator scheduled unlock. So we have a scheduled unlock. This concept has been applied to the lift, the OM120, which supports features for elevator, because sometimes you need to have access to, give access to everyone to a certain floor. So this was added, and we're going to put in a concept to change the device ID for maintenance. You might be very confused or new to this, but this doesn't mean you can change the device ID to an ID whatever you want. We still are going to keep an unchangeable concept, which will be called the serial number, and the device ID will be changed, possibly to change, but it will be through only BioStar 2, and it will be only to replace a device that is already disconnected on the system. So if you have a broken device, you can take it off, put in a new device, change the device ID through BioStar 2, which will make it strict rules that you can only change it to the device that is broken. And then after that, the BioStar 2 system, the software will resend the configuration to the new device, so you don't have to reconfigure them. The next will be enhancing the usability. So the TA reports right now, even if you can give user rights to access their own, just to their own reports, they're not able to update them. But after 2.8.4, we're going to allow individual users to log in to their user ID using their user ID and password, and then update their own reports to see about how many hours they have done. We're going to improve the unassigned card operation. If you have worked with cards, once you enroll them and delete them, they'll be sent to the unassigned card section. Once that is done, you cannot scan that card, but a lot of people, a lot of partners think that's kind of an odd concept. So we're just gonna allow, even if you have registered already and then deleted it, you can still scan it and then allocate to another user. The next will be, we're going to improve the API Swagger. It's there, but for partners that are doing integrations, sometimes the Swagger, the document, it's not that friendly. So we're going to try to restructure the information, starting from the sides, the APIs that are used the most. In this case, it will be the user related, and we're going to improve them over time and try to improve the whole Swagger. Okay. The next will be about the performance. We recently have found if you're using about 20,000 user groups, there are some problems on the performance. So we're improving this to not happen, even though how many user groups you are using. All the trees and everything should work normally. Um, the UI will change a bit, so you can use the 20,000 user groups or more, much more efficient. The next will be scalability. We're on a way to research to support more than 1,000 devices. We're going to strictly test, like having a stress test on a single server, and we'll try to change some structures so we can put more than 1,000 devices. Um, I know even though the business is going quite slow because of the COVID-19, but we still get inquiries about having an enterprise size of projects. So we're trying to support more devices on a single server. And we're going to do that by, it's hard to give you a date, but I just want to let everyone know that we're actually onto it and we're moving quite forward. Next will be stability. So you might be aware that the Oracle Java, we're using update 201, which is the version that is out of the payment, the new policy that where you have to pay if you're using it for commercial use. There's still updates like 2.5 something, I think maybe 2.6. But so we downgraded the Java, but now the problem is there are certain issues that have been reporting with the update 201. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the Oracle Java and exchange to an OpenJDK platform, which you don't have to pay, and we can update any kind of if there are any problems or any kind of maintenance that is needed, any kind of issues reported, then we can upgrade the JDK and then provide it through the new BioStar 2 version. So this is a very overview about a short-term plan. Device-wise, they're ready, so we're just preparing the BioStar 2 to support them. So this is the short term. If you go with the long-term plans, same 6 categories. Even if they're blank, it means we're not just paying attention on those. It's just we're waiting for any specific items to be done, and then we'll update them. But for the long term, which will be the most of the second half of 2020, the occupancy limit zone, this is not the actual name, it's just a pseudo name. Because of the COVID-19, social distancing is now a big, not like a law, but some kind of everyone rule that we all agree. And some countries, I do understand that it's under some kind of a very strict, sometimes, I'm not sure if it's a law, but it's very strict in certain countries. And there are needs to control the users that are in a certain area. So if we can just limit those users and the number of users in a certain zone combined with an APB, then we can limit how many people can be in the zones. Thing is, we will not do this for features that when the device is not connected to the server. To make it fast, we're going to make it as a global zone. If you're not familiar with this term for Suprema, it means the device has to be connected to the server to function in a certain same way. So this will be done. The next will be called the intelligence slave here. So this is a feature related to OSDP. The current official OSDP, it doesn't support the PD, the preferred device, to store the credentials. The controller always has to carry the biometric credentials, but as far as I know, I don't think there are any controllers that will hold up to 100,000 fingerprints, support one-to-one authentication. And definitely, I'm not sure if there's even a controller that supports face, because definitely the OSTP doesn't support. So what we do is we put the information inside the Suprema devices. The Suprema devices, connect them using RS-45 to the controller. So this will be some sort of a slave device. But the matching will be done on the device, and the result will be sent to the controller as a card ID. So in the view of the controller, it will receive data that will be sent from any kind of a third-party card reader that supports OSDP. But when this is done, you can use biometric, you can use one-to-one authentication much more faster, even though the controller doesn't support any biometrics. So this is going to be implemented in the second half. We're also looking for to implement the lockdown, which is just a simple concept to group certain doors in certain areas, and we can just click a button or give direct contact to an input, and then it immediately lock all certain doors that are inside that group. The next will be to support enrollment with Face Station 2 and Face Light connected to a core station as a slave. So just connecting them and doing the authentication, that's already going to be done in a few weeks. But the problem is it still doesn't support directly enrolling the user's face when it's connected as slave. So it means even though you're now connecting a core station with Face Station 2 and Face Station Lite, you will have to have an enrollment device connected to the BioStar 2 server using TCP/IP. But if you don't want to use that, we're going to come up with this feature and implement them. The next two will be related to the device manager application. So the configuration, for now, it's just for XPath 2 and XPath D2, but we'll try to support for all non-LCD devices. So and we'll try to keep up the span of what kind of configuration you can do. Also, we try to support NFC, because all the non-LCD devices do not have BLE. So it has to support NFC. And once we support NFC, we're going to allow and support the firmware upgrade using that, because this will be much more faster than using Bluetooth to upgrade the firmware. Certain devices, even though they're non-LCD devices, the firmware package is in megabytes, and we think it's not that efficient using Bluetooth to send that kind of size of data to devices. Okay, for usability, this is mostly focused on BioStar 2. So we are trying to come up with a solution for backup and restore. We understand that if you're using MariaDB, you have to come up with your own backup plan, and even with MS SQL, it's not done from the BioStar system. So we're trying to do this. So what we are expecting from here is that we do get some inquiries that the system is not working after an upgrade or after restoring the database to a new server. And 9 out of 10, this is when the database upgrade, it failed, or when restoring the database, the user restores it on a different version, it doesn't work. So we'll try to come up with a solution that will reduce these problems and make it easy to do a backup and restore of database on BioStar 2. The next will be the device configuration template. If you remember, we will now trying to support a concept of replacing an old device, but also even with new installations, if you have hundreds and 200s of devices, sometimes certain configurations, you have to do it manually, and it's not an easy job. So what we're trying to do is we're going to make it as a template file, and then you can apply it to another different devices. If there are kind of a certain same type of devices, just to avoid any problems, we'll make it kind of restrict that of implementing from different devices. But if it's the same device, we're going to try to implement that kind of concept. Improving the visitor management, we have heard a lot of complaints, and this will come quite late, even in the second half of 2020. It could maybe on the next year, but we have lists of what needs to be improved, and also we have new devices that are supported, new types of credentials, so we'll try to implement them into the visitor management. Okay, so the performance, scalability, stability, we're going to put in more effort, and if we come up with a certain item, definitely we'll have time to share those soon. So this is the whole update of what's going to come up in the second half of BioStar 2 system. Now, if you have any questions, you can use the chat screen. You can use the Q&A box. I'll be happy to answer. I've got a question from Dante. Hi, hope you're doing well. This cloud feature will disappear. Not that I know of. We do not have any specific plans to close the cloud. I can't say we're going to last it forever, but at least for a few years, we do not have any plans. And the follow-up question is, what about the web API? That will not be updated. It's going to be exactly the same. So we do not have plans to update the web API through the cloud. It's mostly now just focused on the local API that is provided through BioStar 2. Thank you very much for participating. The materials will be shared, same as the video. As again, I hope everyone be safe, you and your families, and we'll talk soon. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.